I apologize. I'm just looking. On December 12th, she brought in a gift of EMT prep cards because I mentioned that I was possibly going to be looking into going into the fire service. That's when she gave me the note about the songs. The next 3 days later that weekend, she messaged me on my private Instagram. So she looked me up and found me and messaged me with her phone number saying that she wanted me to message her either on her phone or if we can talk through Instagram or Facebook or things like that. That's what I drew to attention for my clinic director. And then that Monday, her wife had an appointment. She came with her, which she had never done previously. So it just seemed a little bit off. And then she actually called the clinic later asking for me specifically, which I was not available. So I did not take that phone call. And then that night she sent another message, but this time through Facebook, saying that I didn't know if I had seen it, but she had messaged me on the other platform and that she wanted me to respond. When Susan states that I did not treat her the same as other patients, we'd make small talk as part of our job. Like we talk about movies and music and their personal lives, and they ask us personal things about our lives, like if we're in relationships or do we live in that area. So I responded, no, I live in Tumwater. No, I'm single. Like we kind of just try and build a relationship with that person, which is why I gave her that information. And then there's a point where she says that I found excuses to touch her.
We're taking up case 2575. Ms. Norton, are you intending to call your mother as a witness?
No, she's here solely for just emotional support.
And then we've got another family member in the courtroom. Are you intending to call him?
No.
No.
He wanted to attend. It was closer to his work.
So what this is about is, will this protection order or no contact order continue after today concerning Kylie Norton and Susan Rawl? It's not about the clinic or and what they did or didn't do. It's not about if they did things right or wrong or to an industry standard or anything. That's not what's going to get decided here. That's a different court, a different time, different issue. Some of that, so the information I hear about whether the clinic did anything right or wrong just isn't relevant. Just so everyone's clear, kind of to stay focused on what we're doing here today. So I'll first hear from Ms. Norton, then I'm going to turn over to Susan Rawl. Ms. Norton, knowing that I've looked and listened and reviewed, anything else you want me to focus in on?
If I can clarify just a couple things about the original situation, as actually clarify a couple things from my point of view from Susan and Amanda's statements, if that's so. First off, I kind of want to explain that I am a tech. I work under the direction of a physical therapist in the clinic, meaning that Susan was not actually my patient. She was the therapist that I was working with, Joanna's patient. And the way it's kind of set up is that techs really handle, we get patients from the lobby, we do exercises with them, we'll help with cueing and everything like that, just to make sure they're doing exercises right. Whereas the therapist handles manual and diagnostic and everything like that, just to kind of clarify what my duties are in this situation. So a couple of things I wanted to clarify is that the first one, when Susan talks about, she made a question to Joanna and Lucas, our clinic director, about making me uncomfortable multiple times. I had expressed
there are paragraph numbers in her statement. Is that what I'm looking at?
So it's under number 2. It's on December 17th, paragraph right there. I had gone to my work explaining to them that I was receiving these messages, that she had given me her phone number. And this was after previous incidents in the clinic the week before, where she had given me songs and I showed them to my coworker who knew the artist Taylor Swift. And then she got upset with me for showing my coworker the song names because she said that it was private in between us. We ended up looking up the songs, and they do talk about like having a private relationship outside of work that's not really allowed, and about falling in love at first sight. So it was already kind of insinuating that we had a personal relationship that we don't have, versus I was just trying to do my job. My job is to help these people with their exercises, to have a connection with them in a way that they feel comfortable telling me when something hurts, when something's wrong, and I can help assist them in that way. The next thing.
Can I ask you a question though? So how long have you known Susan Rawl in this?
She became a patient in October, and that was my first time meeting her.
October of 2024.
Yes.
And so then you worked with her, how often do you think?
It was once or twice a week from October into December.
So in that time frame between October and December, was there anything that applies to this request for an order against her?
So the first thing was we make small talk as part of our job. They're doing exercises, it keeps people engaged. And we've been talking about weekend plans, and I mentioned I was going to see Wicked. I just didn't know if anyone would be able to go with me. And she expressed, oh, we should just go after work. I'll meet you at the theater, let's go together. And I told her, no, we do not have contact with patients outside the clinic. I actually had to state that multiple times in that same conversation. So I did tell her that I did not want contact with her outside the clinic way back when that all first started.
And anything other before between October and December?
Yes. So I apologize, I'm just looking. On December 12th, she brought in a gift of EMT prep cards because I'd mentioned that I was possibly going to be looking into going into the fire service. That's when she gave me the note about the songs. The next 3 days later that weekend, she messaged me on my private Instagram. So she looked me up and found me and messaged me with her phone number saying that she wanted me to message her either on her phone or if we can talk through Instagram or Facebook or things like that. That's what I drew to attention for my clinic director. And then that Monday, her wife had an appointment. She came with her, which she had never done previously. So it just seemed a little bit off. And then she actually called the clinic later asking for me specifically, which I was not available. So I did not take that phone call. And then that night she sent another message, but this time through Facebook, saying that I didn't know if I had seen it, but she had messaged me on the other platform and that she wanted me to respond.
And the substance of those messages then?
Unfortunately, what I think happened was I originally believed I had blocked her after those messages, but I believe I declined the messages. So I do not actually have access to those.
In your belief, if you blocked or declined them, would that information have gotten back to Ms. Rawl, to Susan Rawl?
I don't know if she would have been, I think if I blocked her, she would no longer be able to find me. I don't think declining the messages informs them. However, the lack of response, I feel like maybe should have been something that she noticed.
All right. And so first it starts out with just a discussion about Wicked, the play, and telling her, no, we don't have any contact outside of work here. Mm-hmm. And then December 12th, you said you brought a box of EMT tests.
You brought me a gift, which it's kind of a gray area on if we can accept it or not. Because it's not something that's really expensive and dangerous, that's something that we technically can accept. However, as this was all going on, I no longer felt like I could accept it because it wasn't just a gift out of the goodness of her heart. It was almost like an insinuation to a relationship. And so I asked Joanna and our clinic director, Lucas, to return it to her. And I could not.
EMT test prep cards? What are those?
So they're basically just little like flashcards to help you practice for an EMT test.
Oh, I get it. All right. Thus the idea about going into the fire service. And then, all right. So between then that October discussion and that December 12th discussion, anything happened that caused you to be here today?
Not at that time, because I basically was just trying to avoid responding or have contact with her until my clinic director and the therapist could speak to her on my behalf.
So you didn't provide services to her?
No, she was not seen in that time.
All right. And so then, all right. So December 12th happens and as well, Amanda Rawl comes in on, was that
the Monday? That was on the 15th, I believe.
Later. All right. So, and so after that then, so what happens after December 12th?
She had messaged me again so basically she stopped coming for a time. They had offered to switch her to the other clinic. It sounds like she had declined. I was not a part of those phone calls. The second we knew who was calling, someone else took over those phone calls. I stepped away. She decided to come back and my boss let me know that she could return as a patient, but I would not be having any contact with her. Our gym is a very large open area, probably about 1,500 square feet. So pretty large. So whenever she would come in, I would be working with another patient. And later on, she came, I think, for 2 visits. Amanda called back and said that Susan felt she was being punished by not being allowed to speak to me or be near me. Again, I wasn't part of these phone calls directly. This is just what I was told later. And so she decided she no longer wanted to be treated there and to be discharged.
So then after that, December 12th, your higher ups took over on contact? Yes, and so you didn't, any messages that came in, they weren't provided, either you didn't get them or you into the clinic or you weren't supposed to respond, you weren't providing services.
Yes, so I did not respond to anything. Any messages I got, I did show to my clinic director as well as the therapist, just so that they were aware of what was going on. In that time frame that I'm aware of, she sent the initial message on Instagram, the one on Facebook, and then I think 1 or 2 more following on Facebook, just saying that she's sorry and that I should leave my job and that she didn't mean it this way, and then nothing from there. I did get 2 other messages in the months after that from Amanda, stating that she wasn't upset if I wanted to be with Susan and that she wasn't upset. And that's at that point when I blocked Amanda, that's when all the messages with Susan started that I found weeks later.
And weeks later would have been, I mean, these were, I'm trying to find the timeframes here.
So I found them on March 15th, but the original dates in some of the messages are February 22nd.
So,
And I think she was just messaging so much that it never showed up in my requests. It went straight to spam because of how often she was messaging.
so how did you become aware of them?
I got a notification early in the morning that I had a message, and I went in and I didn't see anything in my requests because it wasn't someone that I knew, but there was like a little indicator on the spam folder, and that's when I clicked on it, and that's when I saw everything.
Then you went to spam, and there it is. And all right, go ahead. I'm interrupting you enough.
No, it's just a couple other clarifying things if I can from their statements. When Susan states that I did not treat her the same as other patients, we'd make small talk as part of our job. Like we talk about movies and music and their personal lives, and they ask us personal things about our lives, like if we're in relationships or do we live in that area. So I responded, no, I live in Tumwater. No, I'm single. Like we kind of just try and build a relationship with that person, which is why I gave her that information. And then there's a point where she says that I found excuses to touch her. That is not the case. It's called a contact cue or a tactile cue. If a muscle is not engaging or it's over engaging, you can touch the muscle in order to help it actually engage better. So that is what I was doing. I was not finding excuses to touch her. I was simply giving a tactile cue and trying to do my job.
How long have you been a physical therapy?
As of now, I've been a physical therapy tech for 4.5 years.
So at that point, 4 years.
About, yes.
All right. And at this clinic or others?
It is with this clinic, with this therapist and this clinic director, yes.
And where you do the queuing, where you do the exercises and the queuing, is that in the gym that you refer to?
Yes, it is in the large open gym. There's always multiple people in there. No one's ever left alone. There's always multiple staff members, multiple patients, things like that.
And all right, let me just kind of look through some things here to see if I have any other questions here.
I apologize.
Go ahead.
In reviewing some of the messages, she does make comments about seeing me, like talking to my boss. This is months after she was a patient, seeing me talking to my boss and how she feels sick seeing that. And she makes a reference to me being sick at one point, which I do not know how she would have known unless she had seen me. And she starts dropping landmarks around the area where I talked about how I take Yelm Highway to work and I live in Tumwater. She drops landmarks in that area almost as if she's trying to figure out where I live. And that is really the point that made me feel I needed to file this.
And that was obviously sometime between February and March 15th, and those you discovered the messages. So you're not quite sure when they came in. It's hard to tell. All right.
But the clinic is mostly windows in the gym area, so it's very easy to see in. And it's to the point that I don't feel comfortable almost going into work because I feel like I'm being watched.
And after you discovered things in March, I mean, were you able to determine the latest message that came in when it came in?
It was that morning. She was actively still messaging me when I blocked her. I think she sent me a voicemail like 5 minutes before I blocked her.
All right. And then since that discovery of all those messages in spam, what happened after that?
Basically, after that, I contacted my boss and I wanted to make sure I wasn't revealing anything that was protected medical information. So they told me it is all good, file this sort of stuff. I have not had any contact with her at that point. They did change where I park so that my car is not as easily accessible. It's just, yeah. So nothing's happened since then, but I have her blocked, but I can't confirm what she's been doing in that time.
All right. Let me just see. All right. I'm just going to pause here and just kind of review a few things, see if I have some questions before I turn to Susan Rall.
Of course.
So Kylie Norton, anything else before I turn to Susan Rall?
I think the one thing else I want to say is that at one point, Amanda references on December 19th when she spoke with Joanna. She stated that I was present for the conversation she had with Joanna. I was in the room. However, I was working with another, possibly up to 2 patients. I have no recollection of them having that conversation. I was probably just present in the room. So in no way was I implying that I was working with Susan again or anything like that. I was simply just in the room.
All right. And at that point, December 19th, you were advised by your higher ups to not.
At that point, yeah, she had already had the initial discussion with our clinic director and the therapist. She was on break from therapy. She was considering what she wanted to do. So I was just at that point staying out of the situation as much as I could.
Just reviewing. All right, so Susan Rawl, let me turn to you in your response to this request for a restraining order. And I have had a chance to review Amanda Rawl's statement there and the information that you provided. So Susan Rawl, what would you like to say in response to this request?
Well, I have no problem not talking to Miss Norton. The thing is, I think this is a misunderstanding. I really wish that the physical therapy place would have told me in the room, because I asked 5 times, did I make her uncomfortable? I would have never came back to that place, ever. I asked them so many times. I would have never contacted her ever again. I would have left her alone. I really think that somebody should have told me. I really do. I'm not this type of person. I'm not the type of person to make anyone feel uncomfortable. That's not who I am. My record is clean. And the reason I was driving by, to be honest with you, was to take Amanda to work. Unfortunately, we had to sell her car and I had to take her to work. I mean, if she didn't see my car after, I think for a whole month, because yes, their PT place is on the main strip of Yelm where, I live by. It's all windows and I think it's 25 miles per hour there and I go 35. To be honest, I drive faster because I don't want to see Lucas or Joanna, because I went back to therapy due to what they did to me in that room.
Let me ask you about that December 17th. I'm looking at the information from Joanna Lopez that she wrote, her declaration, she says, that was filed by the petitioner. I'm looking down to 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph, and that's where she indicates during the week of December 17th, 2024, Lucas Christensen and I, Joanna Lopez then, had a private meeting with Susan prior to a scheduled therapy session. And we explained that it's inappropriate to fraternize with patients outside the clinic. We requested she stop reaching out to Kylie outside the clinic and that she couldn't accept a gift. So then there are about 40 or 50 audio messages from you to Ms. Norton that she doesn't discover till March. Can you help me understand
They
what
stated that it was
December 17?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. They stated that it was an employee policy, just an employee policy that patients and employees could not talk together, and I misunderstood.
Yeah.
And if they would have said, hey, you're making her feel uncomfortable, like if they would have said that, those audio messages, all those messages, they would have never been there. I would have never contacted her. And when they gave me back the gift, Joanna said, hey, it's to give people gifts, but it should be baked goods.
So what did you understand from them when they said that you were supposed to stop reaching out to Kylie Norton?
That
Did you think
when I was a patient, I thought that's what they meant. That as long as I was a patient there. I mean, that's really what I thought.
so? They said not appropriate for patients and the clinic people to fraternize, and they asked you to stop reaching out to her outside the clinic. And then
yes, because I asked her again. I'm sorry, ma'am.
When were you no longer a clinic? When were you no longer using this clinic?
As of December 27th, Amanda pulled me out.
So thereafter then, so looks like maybe February and March, there were all sorts of audio messages and other messages sent to Ms. Norton.
Yeah.
And so that was your understanding, is that since you weren't
yes, ma'am, and I really
that clinic, you were good to contact her.
Yes, Your Honor. I am so sorry. I really wish that they would have explained that I made her uncomfortable. I really wish that they didn't say that it was an employee policy, because I asked so many times, did I make her uncomfortable? I can go right now. I'll never come back.
All right. So what do you understand now?
That she's uncomfortable and she never wants to talk to me again. And I totally understand that. But I am not stalking her. I literally passed to get coffee, and Amanda's not even working in Tumwater anymore. And she moved stores again. And that's the only reason I was driving past. Like I only have 30,000 miles on my truck. I don't leave my house unless I have to. And it definitely wasn't to pass the PT place.
kind of reviewing thing to see if there's anything more for me to inquire about.
Like, I'd be willing to sign any document she wants that I'll no longer contact her. But there was no malintent there at all.
All right. And we jump back to Ms. Norton. There are about 40 or 50 messages, audio clips. Anything in there that you remember you want to
Part
bring
of
my
what
attention to?
gets me on a lot of the messages is that there's a consistent and continuous insinuation that we are in some sort of romantic relationship. Apparently, Susan bought tickets to us go to see a musical later on. Like, she talks about how we can meet up in a different town if I don't want anyone to know. She insinuates that my parents made me feel bad about my sexuality, which I'm straight. It's not really an issue here. They don't care either way. But there's just a continuous insistence that we have some sort of relationship other than the professional relationship that we had. And it makes me extremely uncomfortable.
It's a misunderstanding there. So if you had not found these messages, you would have never known they were coming to you.
Exactly.
And they probably would have continued. All right.
I think part of what gets me too is that it's over 5 hours of voice messages over the span of about 2 weeks. She did not message me at all in January or most of February that I can see, but it's the amount and just how quickly it all came that concerns me, because it kind of implies some level of something new happening. And I don't know what that was, but
the screenshots of text messages, were those also in your spam? Or
everything was in there. Yeah. There's one message from previously, because I had screenshotted the original message she sent and sent it to my boss when it happened, because it was on a weekend. And that's the only one that was the original Instagram message, but everything else was all within that like 2.5 week time frame. And she states in one message that she wasn't messaging me before because she was mad at me, but now she knows that I'm probably listening to these and smiling, and that's just not the case.
Susan Rawl.
No, I mean, I already talked to my therapist about it, and I know that it stated that they wanted me to get a mental health evaluation, and she had Jennifer Brink. I'm going to the colon clinic, and she said I would pass with flying colors if the court needed be.
So, Ms. Rawl, Ms. Norton, but I'm not issuing an order, but, and this is the reason why, I mean, under the law, what you received, Ms. Norton, was unwanted and disturbing from suppositions that you were making from other people saying that, Susan may have been violent to someone else or gets angry when she's upset, but
that is something she stated in her message.
Yeah. But I have to find what was her intent under the law, and I don't find enough evidence to show that her intent was to commit unlawful harassment against you in particular. Certainly they were to you in particular, and what you're feeling is fair. I'm not saying that that's not true, but what the law defines, that's a whole other animal. Now, Susan Rawl, I think you know full well now, no contact with Ms. Norton. She doesn't want anything from you, and if she receives any kind of communication from you, you can anticipate that she would probably come back to the court. We would look at all this and that, and then there would be an order, highly likely.
If she like, I can sign a contract and send it to the court.
You don't have to sign a thing. What you've said today is you're not going to contact Ms. Norton, so keep to that. Okay. But again, I just have to tell you, Ms. Norton, that I don't want to say that this is going to happen again, but if anything were to come from Ms. Rawl that's unwanted, this will be reviewed along with that. And then at that point, intent is clear, a lot clearer. So what I'm hoping is this puts it to rest. I'm going to sign an order that does away with the no contact order right now. So Susan Rawl, I think, just don't have any kind of contact with Kylie Norton or anyone associated with her. Don't try and contact her through others or in any way. And then things should be fine. And I'll sign an order as to that effect that says that the no contact order was issued a couple weeks ago is gone and there is no further one. So that's it for today. Susan Rawl, you can be on your way, and Kylie Norton, you can be on your way. This will be in the court file for everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Luck to you.